anybody at tonight?
What's that?
There's no staff here tonight, hardly.
No, what's that?
I don't know. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. I don't have to talk, it's okay.
That really is.
Do you like it like that, or do you want it?
That's good. I just so it don't fall off, you know. That's good. As long as it'll stay there. That's good.
Don't let
So many things that could be said.
I know. It's my luck.
bad brush.
Yeah.
For his help on the theater the other night. Did you get out at all for the concert?
No,
They did a great job. Take care. Good. There's no sense in it.
Good evening. It is 5:30, so we're going to call the meeting to order. Remind you to turn your cell phones to silent or vibrate. And then please let's all stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Amanda, would you take the roll, please?
Councilmember Rowe.
Here.
Councilmember Stevens.
Here.
Councilmember Strebe.
Here.
Councilmember Dalby.
Here.
Councilmember Myers.
Here.
Mayor Lazio.
Here.
Items on the consent agenda. Minutes from regular meeting number 34 on October 3rd, 2017 is presented. Acknowledge September financial statement and payment of bills as submitted by the Finance Department. Appointment of James Jackson and Sandy Teagues to the Public Safety Advisory Committee, terms to expire October 17th, 2020. Don Wasson to the Airport Advisory Board, term to expire October 1st, 2020. And William Bill Hoffman to the Waterworks Board of Trustees, term to expire July 22nd, 2022. Civil Service Commission Police Officer Entrance Eligibility List of October 16th, 2017. Purchase 28,000 yard waste sacks from Waste Zero at a cost of $14,000. Authorize the City of Ottumwa to pay $10,000 to Greater Ottumwa Partners in Progress to assist with To the Top consulting fee. Payment to DC Concrete and Construction for emergency sewer repair work on Union Street. Payment to McClure and Company Concrete for 9-inch Portland cement concrete pathing with integral curb and gutter on Grandview Avenue. Resolution number 211, 2017, setting the date for a public hearing on the intent to dispose of city-owned property located at 576 Grandview. Resolution number 213, 2017, fixing the date for a public hearing on the proposal to enter into a development agreement with Washington Apartments and providing for publication of notice thereof. Resolution number 215, 2017, rescinding resolution number 50, 2002, approving the sale of city-owned property in Eastview addition to Joshua Luke. Resolution number 216, 2017, setting a public hearing on the proposed sale of 343 East Park Avenue, Ottumwa, Iowa. Resolution number 218, 2017, authorize the city of Ottumwa to spend $30,000 for fiscal year 2018 to assist with the Greater Ottumwa Partners in Progress director costs. Resolution number 219, 2017, setting November 7th, 2017 as the date of a public hearing on the disposition of city-owned property located at 2801 Romer to Environmental Edge and on the intent to enter into an agreement for the redevelopment of said property. Resolution number 220, 2017, setting the date for a public hearing on the intent to dispose of city-owned property located at 1707 West 5th Street. Resolution number 221, 2017, approving the contract, bond, and certificate of insurance for the Sheridan Avenue reconstruction project. Resolution number 222, 2017, approving the contract, bond, and certificate of insurance for the Davis Street reconstruction project. Beer and/or liquor applications, Mexico Lindo, 530 West 2nd Street. Benchwarmers Eatery and Sports Lounge, 2209 Romer with outdoor service area. All applications pending final inspections.
Is there a motion?
Your Honor, I would move to approve the consent agenda with the removal of item B6.
Second.
Any other?
Mr. Mayor, I just add a point of clarification. Item 13, that resolution 218, 2017, you will note, as the city clerk stated, that sets forth the expenditure of $30,000. I just want to be clear on that. That is that's a quarter. Those are quarterly payments that we will be making to the Partners in Progress Board for the Go PIP since the reorganization has taken place. So just to be clear on that, that $30,000 will be spent out quarterly. That will not be expended immediately. We'll pay that over a series of time as the year comes on every quarter.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent with the removal of item 6. Any further comment or discussion? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes. Item C, we need approval for tonight's agenda.
So move.
Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
At this time, I'd like to call on City Administrator Andy Morris to talk about home-based Iowa, and he attended a meeting recently.
Thank you, Mayor. As the mayor noted, I attended a meeting. The Home-Based Iowa Initiative, as you may or may not know, provides certain employment services and opportunities for former military personnel. In addition to that, the meeting that we attended at Iowa Works at the Indian Hills campus out at the airport, they're also looking for incentives that area businesses may be in a position to offer. The program at this point is, I would say, struggling to move forward on what businesses are going to be contacted and what it will be asked of them. But I did participate in that meeting and said that I would attend future meetings. The mayor has certainly a deeper background in home-based Iowa. So, Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you to talk about the program in a little bit larger context.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Well, home-based Iowa is a state program that's been in place for a couple of years now, and it's really an attempt to help veterans returning to the community to find employment and choose our city or our county to live in. We've got a good committee of people. Terry Bradley, the director of the Wapello County Veterans Affair, Danny Simonson, who is with Iowa Workforce and is a veteran, Connie Hammersley from the Chamber office, and then, of course, Andy will be representing the city. And we'd like to really promote this. Many of the counties around us are already designated. You may recall that the council did pass a resolution some time ago, almost a year ago. We've done what we can do, but we do need to put together an incentive package. And so we'll be promptly asking our planning department to help with that in terms of if there's anything we can do for some type of either tax abatement or reduction on mortgage payments that would be suitable to attract veterans. Many of them are well qualified and have equivalent training in the service. And we now also have a website that links to our city website, and any veteran around the world can zero in on us. And Joni Keith, our human resource manager, is also listed as a contact on that site. So we hope that we can attract some of these people because, again, whether it's military, police, engineers, heavy equipment operators, they're well-trained nurses. We'd like to get some of those people back here and have them buy houses and live and work in Wapello County. So we'll keep you posted, but I want you to be aware of it, and please talk to your friends in the business community. We want to be very supportive of this project. Another item I want you to be aware of, sometimes you wonder what the mayor's been up to, and I think this past month we've been really busy with a lot of different things. We had 2 requests for proclamations, one from the Women's Shelter and Crisis Center. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, so we did have a ceremonial proclamation out in the park. And then last Friday, we had a proclamation with the White Cane Society. And for any of you who are not familiar with that, that's a national group, and they provide a lot of special assistance to people who are visually impaired or challenged. And the AEA brought in 2 different busloads of children who are visually impaired, and so it was fun to visit with them and hear from them and their parents who were present for that. And then another item I'd like to call the attention of the council, and I'd like to invite Tim Richmond, who is our Emergency Management Coordinator, to come and visit with the council at some time in the future. I spent a Saturday going through a rail car incident planning episode. I've said to Tim for a long time that it seems to me one of the most likely possibilities that we would have some type of a train derailment. We had one many, many years ago, and I think it would really be helpful to have him come and present to us. He also used a lot of terms, and I'm sure the chief is aware of it, but shelter in place. And what does that mean? And how do we notify our citizens? And, you know, if we had an ammonia leak, which we did have several years ago down at that time, Cargill. So I think there are some really good things that Tim could help us to get educated on. We may need some practice sessions, and I think it would be just a good exercise for him to come and do a special meeting with the council. I've also had a request from Liberty School. You may recall about 1.5 years, almost 2 years ago now, we had a group of students come and talk to us about recycling. This group of students is going to come and talk about the importance of water, and they will make about a 10 to 15-minute presentation to the council and show you the research that they've done, and I think it's just a great way to get our young people involved with city government and also get some current research that they've done. So we're going to be doing that probably in November, right around Thanksgiving time. They want a little more time to finish up their project. Also, this past week, I want to compliment the Main Street, Iowa. I went and welcomed a Main Street training session here at the hotel, and we had over 100 Main Street directors from Iowa at the hotel. And as you recall, they spent the day then doing a Build a Better Block project, which was, I think, highly successful and enjoyable. Around 50 volunteers who participated in that. And it was really a neat event. The weather wasn't very cooperative, but if you were down on Thursday night, you saw people walking on the streets and enjoying the lights and the outdoor seating, and they did a really good job. Along with that, then Friday night, there was a Rock the Block concert at the Ottumwa Theater. And I'd like to thank Mr. Matt Bresch and his wife, Tara, who donated about 8 hours of physical labor to clean up the inside of that theater and made it presentable. So we had a great time. The band, members only, played, and it was really neat. I went down for a couple hours and enjoyed the music and also just the chance for people to sit and visit with each other. So it was a great evening there. Also then this week, I think you all know by now that we've sealed the deal with TJ Heller, who is now the CEO for the Greater Ottumwa Partners in Progress Directorship. And I think at some time in the future, we'll invite him to the council and have him look at what his goals and directions will be, since we're paying a healthy sum to finance that. And I think with his background in development and national business, he worked for a Fortune 500 company before taking this position. I think he has a lot to offer, and we certainly want to wish him the best in his new endeavor. I don't see Larry here. I did talk to Larry Seals earlier today, and so I don't know, Dwight, if this is fair to you, but we've had a number of calls about Marion Street, and for the public's sake, we had a water main break up there and some undercutting of the pavement, and it is really rough on that street. In talking with Larry Seals, our Public Works Director, he says he wants to wait until the waterworks gets finished with their patching and we do some sewer work up there, and then we'll have to look at an overlay of some type, because it's really rough on your car if you go up or down it right now. So I just want the public to know we're aware of it, and we're going to try to deal with it the best we can. And a couple of invitations for the council. November 15th, the Iowa League of Cities is going to host a meeting here at Bridgeview, and we're going to co-sponsor that with the with the Fairfield City Council. So it'll be Ottumwa and Fairfield. Andy Morris is going to represent the city and make a short presentation on what's the impact of the tax rollback on our budget. And that's something we're all concerned about, because it affects city, county, and school districts. It's not just the city. And I think then I just want to make a comment. Mr. Myers and I had the opportunity to visit with the supervisor at the Cardella Call Service Center, and I want to make that clear. It's a service center. They're not outbound calls. They are receiving calls from customers who have contracts with that company. And as of Monday of this week, they had 155 employees working. They would like to have 200 by the end of November. And I was just notified this afternoon that Governor Kim Reynolds is going to come on October 27th at 1 p.m. And so I'd invite any city staff and certainly all the council to hear the governor and also to help welcome Mr. Cardell and his staff there. So I think with that, we'll move on to the rest of the agenda.
If I may, though, Mayor.
Sure.
Since you brought it up, if I could add, this Friday night is a follow-up to, you mentioned last Friday's Better Block. They also had a really neat history walk again, and that will be ran again this Friday night. And then the other thing, I guess just as a note for us, when you're mentioning that meeting on November 15th, was that, that's also a solid waste, so we'll have to make sure we can get our timeline.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Okay. Item E, we do have one person. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to address the council on an item on the agenda? We have one that's been turned in. We'll call you up at that time. So item F.
Approve a 2-year lease agreement for the Ottumwa Levee System Farm Ground between 120th Avenue and 77th Street in Wapello County, Iowa with Chuck Craver. Recommendation, approve the lease agreement for the Ottumwa Levee System Farm Ground with Chuck Craver, March 1st, 2018.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Is there a
Second.
Thank you. At this point, Dave Gordy, you asked to talk on this item, so please step to the mic.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I have asked to speak on this matter because, well, it's right next to my home. I know what it is, I know the area, and have experience with it. The lease you guys are proposing to get here is $1,000 a year for what is roughly 10 to 20 acres of farm ground, along with comparable 20-some acres of timber and scrub grass. Now, as per your agreement, would not start till March 1st. Now, Mr. Craver's already placed signs and has placed signs as of the beginning of this year stating he had ownership of the land. And you all did a wonderful job in getting a controlled burn on that ground cleaned up. And as per your agreement here, if it had been approved back in the beginning of this year, when he did so place the placards and has done other things with that property, including subleasing it to a farmer, he would have had to have done mowings of that ground after the controlled burn, which is the sheer purpose of said lease, is to keep that ground contained so that the pollution control facility doesn't have to worry about that being yet another grass fire, wildfire every year. He has yet to do so. He's not done any of that. He's had, on multiple occasions, people in campers placed out in the timber there, living for weeks on time, to be pulled back off. He subleased the farm ground, which, if it's to anybody around here at all, it'd be at least, at minimum, a $200 per acre. Now, that's costing the city anywhere between $2,000 to $3,000 a year in revenue that you all could be making for the cities, for the population of the city, to go into the city's budget. That's not exactly a great investment in the public's trust there. Should be looking at a different agreement on this and a different way of handling it. The marsh ground and timber ground there has yet to be cleaned up. In fact, as of today, they were placing down trees and stumps into those woods, which are yet more of a fire hazard. Again, if this is supposed to be about maintaining the ground to be less of a fire hazard, maintaining it to be a betterment for the city and the population of the community, and to be a safer area for the pollution control facility, it's not doing so. Oh, Mr. Craver doesn't own the equipment to keep said ground mowed and contained. He's done no effort or work to remove the trash and debris that is in there or keep the brush down. And this is not in the best interest of this community or this council to do so, especially at such a loss as to if you were to get a local farmer, as obviously he could, to pay what would be a fair market value of at least $200 an acre for the lease of that ground. The farm ground alone could then be put forth. And I'm sure another organization, the scouting groups, Parks Department, or somebody could actually do some excellent work with that ground and use it for wonderful recreational or even in parks or, again, scouting purposes with camping, primitive camping, and things of that nature.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm looking at City Attorney Joni. Do you want to make any comments?
Yeah, I'd be glad to, Your Honor. The city does own approximately 44 acres of potential farm ground along with timber and scrub ground, which is behind the levee system at the Water Pollution Control Facility between 120th Avenue and 77th Street in Wapello County. A portion of this property had been farmed by a local farmer since approximately 1991, although apparently he was farming it with no permission from the city and there was no revenue received on this property. When we learned about it, we bid it out. It was placed in the newspaper. We received, although Mr. Gordy was advised that we were bidding this out and he wanted the property, he wanted to bid on the property, he did not submit a bid. And it was bid out 2 years ago and Mr. Craver was a successful bidder. He was the only bidder for this property. So if farmers want to farm this property, they're certainly welcome to submit a bid. They didn't do it. And the reason being is this ground does flood periodically. And if it's flooded, they don't get a crop off of it. So that's probably why we don't get a farmer in that wants to pay $200 an acre to farm this ground. Individuals have illegally hunted on this property. That's been a concern. Mr. Craver has, in fact, he has the lease through the end of the year. And if the council deems to agree to give him this lease again for another 2 years, he will have it through. So the fact that he has signs on this property is irrelevant because he's got control of the property. So we've done the bid process. We've got one bid. It's for $1,000 a year. He's agreed to keep weeds, trees, brush, and debris down, try to reduce the fire hazard in this area. We've done one controlled burn in that area as well, and staff is recommending that this bid be accepted.
Any questions for Joni?
I have one. What about the campers that they referred to? Is that part of this? Is he allowed to do that?
He made that complaint and it was unfounded.
Okay, thank you.
We were not able to prove that this was occurring.
Okay, so any other comments or questions?
Well, I think the other point, and then Cam, I'd like to ask you, but I think the other point, and maybe Joni said it, but this lease also includes that levee will be mowed twice a year, right? And then Cam, question to you, by the requirement of mowing the levee, his doing that, does that satisfy you as far as you're concerned?
We actually mow the levee, water pollution control, and we mow that during the season, we mow that every week.
So,
So the mowing of the levee itself is not part of that.
okay, okay, that's okay, thank you.
Matt?
Yeah, Your Honor, I got a quick question, Joni. So you said that the accusation that there were people camping out there was unfounded. What would happen if somebody did go out there and set up campers and that type of thing? Is that restricted in this lease?
That is restricted.
Okay.
Their campers are not allowed on that ground, but occasionally we have squatters that'll come in. The homeless will come in and camp out. We've caught them several different places around the city, and we try to stay on top of that. And Mr. Craver tries to watch that as well and tries to watch for the illegal hunting. There is illegal hunting that does occur in that area, and he tries to put a stop to that.
Thank you.
Okay, are you ready to vote? Take the roll, please.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Bid review and contract award for asbestos removal and demolition of structures at 722 Baker and 308 North Graves. Recommendation, accept the bid and award the contract to Environmental Edge for the sum of $24,040.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented. Second.
Good evening, Jody, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Bids for this project were accepted until October 9th. We received 4 bids, and the bid tab is attached to your staff summary. We had 2 companies who bid on the asbestos and demolition removal. We had 1 company who bid on just the asbestos and 1 company that bid on just the demolition. And staff is recommending awarding the contract to Environmental Edge for $24,040.
Any questions for Jody? Okay, take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Thank you.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the proposed ordinance number 3132, 2017, amending the Code of Ordinances by changing the zoning classification on property located at 1116 Charles Avenue from R1 to R3. I've received 1 objection on this item.
Good evening, Kevin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Honor. We are here to talk about this rezoning. There's a couple of points I did want to make from R1 to an R3. We do have 3 conditions on this rezoning that the Planning Commission put on it at our recent meeting. That would be, number 1, that the development shows substantive progress by May 1st, 2019, or the developer owner must return to Planning and Zoning Commission to ask for an extension on the agreement. Number 2, that the balance of 1- and 2-story units be built as proposed by the developer with illustration at the October 2nd Plan and Zoning Commission meeting. And I'll get back to that in just a moment. And number 3, that these conditions run with the property and pass to all successors and assigns, and any change of said development plan as presented would need the approval of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And just to speak to the illustration that was provided in your packets, you did have site plan that showed that there was two fourplexes and one eightplex in the middle for a total of 16 units for the project. But at our planning commission meeting, the developer had looked at some of the exigent circumstances in the market and otherwise, and that planning design had changed slightly so that it would be actually four fourplex units. And they would not be the same height. They were going to be 2 stories all the way across. They would be 2 stories in the middle with 2 units, and on the outer pieces of those fourplexes would be single-story units. The developer feeling that it was a better idea in a market fashion to appeal to seniors. So those would be ADA units on those outside pieces. Now, in our zoning code, that would mean that the eightplex that was consistent in the middle, one solid eightplex overall building would be split into 2 fours. And in the zoning code, of course, if you have townhouses in an R3, you'll need a 15-foot setback between those actual overall buildings that the units are contained within. So that will be one small change. You'll see that in your next packet. The Planning Commission was aware of that, but at the time we sent out our packets, we couldn't get a copy of that that conceptual plan. We do have that now. But I would entertain any questions that any members have. These are also market rate units, by the way.
This is a public hearing. If there's anyone in the audience that wants to address this item, this is the time to speak up. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Ordinance number 3132, 2017, amending the Code of Ordinances by changing the zoning classification on property located at 1116 Charles Avenue from R1 to R3. Recommendation passed the first consideration of ordinance number 3132, 2017.
Move the recommendations presented.
Second.
I just have a quick question, Mayor.
Sure, go
Kevin,
ahead.
the Planning and Zoning Commission passed 6-2. Can you recall what the 2 no votes were with regard to what the reservations were about it, or were they just simply no votes?
They were simply no votes, of course. I would think that most likely their withholding their yes vote would have been related to probably density, because I think there was some discussion early on in our meetings. And of course, this developer had come forward with another development plan and another request for rezoning that had been pulled back. And so I think that it was probably a result of the density that was going to be on the development overall.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yeah. Yes.
Resolution number 212, 2017, accepting a gift of real estate from John Merlin Walker Estate located at 117 South Iowa Avenue, Ottumwa, Iowa. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 212, 2017.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Joni?
Thank you, Your Honor. A vacant lot located at 117 South Iowa Avenue in Ottumwa is currently owned by John Merlin Walker, who is deceased. The legal description is Lot 18 in Block 4 in Janey's addition to the city. An estate action is pending in the Wapello County, Iowa District Court. Apparently, maybe decades ago, there might have been a structure on this property that was condemned and taken down, and the cost of that was assessed to the real estate taxes. Those were never paid, and this individual that owned this property thought it had been sold at tax sale, and it had not. He still owned it, and the attorney handling the estate found that this individual still owned this property, and he wanted to know if we would be interested in having it donated to the city. So we reviewed the property. The recommendation of the Planning and Health Department is that we accept this gift. And then as soon as we accept it, the deed will be recorded, and then the city will work with the county to get the taxes abated so that we can get this back into the hands of somebody that will either build on it or use it as green space, but it will be back on the tax rolls. We're requesting that this gift be accepted and the mayor authorized to sign any documents needed to get this transfer to occur.
Any questions for Joni? Okay, take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Resolution number 224, 2017, approving change order number 1 for beach renovations Phase 2, Contract B, pool filter replacement project. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 224, 2017.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Good evening, Gene, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The city council approved the contract in the amount of $123,550 to ACO Unlimited of Johnston, Iowa through resolution number 178-2017 on August 15th, 2017 for contract B pool filter replacements for the beach renovations Phase 2 project. Change order number 1 consists of performing additional inspections and testing of the underground piping systems in the wave pool prior to repair and replacement of the concrete floors for the additional cost of $9,466.25. The revised contract amount is $133,016.25, and the total cost for Phase 2 is now $670,775.25.
Any questions for Gene?
Mr. Mayor, just a question. Gene, I think you've already clarified this, but it's my understanding, I guess from a staff or administrative perspective, we're trying to keep these phases at or around the neighborhood of $700,000. Now, this is Phase 2, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to verify that. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, if there's no questions, let's take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Resolution number 225, 2017, awarding the contract for the Water Pollution Control Facility Waste Gas Burner Replacement and Relocation Project. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 225, 2017.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Good evening, Cam.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This project will include the relocation and installation of an already purchased waste gas burner. The old burner was dilapidated and the relocation is necessary to meet the National Electric Code. This project was advertised in the Ottumwa Courier and in the Master Builders of Iowa online plan room. The loan bid was opened at 2 p.m. on October 11th, 2017. That was by Winger Companies of Ottumwa, Iowa, in the amount of $46,450. We recommend accepting the bid.
Any questions for Cam? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cam.
Ordinance number 3127, 2017, amending the Code of Ordinances, Municipal Code of the City of Ottumwa, Iowa, by repealing Chapter 20 in its entirety and enacting a substitute in lieu thereof. Recommendation, pass the third consideration, pass and adopt ordinance number 3127, 2017.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Good evening, Jody.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is the third reading of this ordinance, and it will adopt the 2015 International Property Maintenance Code and will continue to utilize some sections of our current housing code. And it will also become effective January 1st, 2018, if the council approves this.
Any questions for Jody? I'd compliment you. You've done a good job of visiting with the Landlord Association. I got some good feedback from them, and
Good.
it was nice to hear that they felt you were very open with them. Okay, no further questions or comments. Take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Resolution number 214, 2017, establishing fees for rental housing permits and inspections in the City of Ottumwa, Iowa, and rescinding resolution number 163, 2002. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 214, 2017.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, Jody, you're.
This resolution will increase our rental permit fees and the inspection fees, and then it also establishes a mechanism to adjust the fees annually using the Consumer Price Index. And we did discuss these fees with the Landlords Association, and they are not For the rental permit fee itself, it's not a large increase, but we did want to increase substantially our no-show fees, those people who do not show up for inspections after they're scheduled. So you'll notice the current fee is $20, and we propose to increase that to $50. And then also failure to correct deficiencies upon a third and subsequent inspection. We wanted to put some more financial teeth into folks who have just decided to delay any sort of repairs or maintenance to their rental properties after we do an inspection. And so they just drag their feet, and we go back time and time again to get them to repair those deficiencies. So we wanted a sliding scale on that. On the second inspection, we increased that fee $10 from what it currently is, but on the third and subsequent, we wanted to increase it at least $30.
Any questions for Jody?
I have a couple, Your Honor. First of all, and I think this question might have been answered the other day, but just for clarification, is this enough to cover our cost in doing the inspections?
If we were trying to cover our costs based upon just 1 year's rental permit fee, it would not be enough. But our system is designed so that we charge a rental permit fee every year. But we do an inspection, a regular rental inspection, once every 3 years. So you take 3 years of the rental permit cost, and right now it's $75, and we're proposing that it would go up to $90 over 3 years. And that is enough to cover one inspection by the inspector, and also administrative costs of sending out notices, making the appointments, and preparing the bills every year. We computed that an inspector typically spends about a half an hour at these inspections or less. Maybe 10% of the inspections take a lot more time than that. But an inspector's benefit hours rate, our most senior inspector is about $46 per benefit hour. So, half of that's 23. And our administrative staff, they might spend a total of 15 or 20 minutes over the course of a year dealing with a particular address. That might be kind of high, but, for purposes of just making the math kind of simple, just say a quarter of an hour's time is spent. So I think that the fees that we're proposing here over 3 years more than covers the cost of the inspection. The remaining monies that would be generated, they're covering the cost of all the things that, the rental property owners that maybe cost us a lot of time, placarded houses that we don't generate any money off of, and things like that.
Okay, fair enough. And the fact that the CPI is adjusting is wonderful. I like that. One thing that I did want to touch on, and it's the failure to correct deficiencies on third and subsequent inspections. How many opportunities do we give a landlord to make a correction before we say enough is enough?
Well, there is no hard and fast number to that. I think our inspectors are pretty, they're pretty good about working with a landlord. For instance, if you have 10 things you have to correct and they go back, they have to go back for a reinspection, they find that you've got 7 out of 10 finished. And one of those unfinished ones is painting the outside of the house, and it's the middle of winter. You can't do that then.
Sure.
So then they'll give them, until a certain period in spring to do it. But you go back and it's been a rainy spring and they can't get it done. So, those are the things that I think they give them breaks on.
So are there folks though that are blatantly violating and taking advantage of the system and just not doing anything, and we're going back and re-inspecting all for naught?
Yes, there are, which
So,
I'm hoping that these fees will help correct that.
okay, but At the end of the day, though, they still, if they're in violation of our new International Property Maintenance Code, and they're willing to pay the extra $50 or whatever, they can still keep renting and be in violation. Is that correct?
They can, up to a point, and there will come a time when the inspector can recommend that their rental permit fee is, if they have one, that it is revoked. The inspection board we can take things to the inspection board of review to make those recommendations. We haven't done that very often, but there's no reason not to kind of start this code out right and make that decision.
That's kind of where I was going with that. If we have the opportunity to do that, put some sort of procedure in place. That way we don't have our inspectors going out and running in circles 14, 15 times, and we have basically derelict houses, and because landlords don't want to spend the money on fixing a piece of property because they can just make more money off of it.
Right.
So that might be something to consider going forward.
I agree.
Any other questions?
Make a comment here. I would echo what Marco says and maybe go a step further. What I don't want to see happen is we got some derelict stock of rental housing in Ottumwa, a lot of it, and we know that. We've been trying to get a handle on it. But on the same time, there are several, and more than several, but there are quite a few good landlords that we have that own multiple properties. Mm-hmm. And when you add up the fees, can be, when you look at what they get per unit and try to keep it to the minimum standard, becomes burdensome on those. And what I don't want to see is those folks that are good landlords get penalized for those who don't take care of their property. I'd rather see the fees that you proposed here, and then maybe the inspection board of review looking at a few more landlords that don't pull their weight, so that we don't have to keep shifting these costs onto the good landlords of Ottumwa, because I've talked to several of them, and they do provide a need for the city of Ottumwa. And I can see if our rental fees that cover just strictly the rental permit, if those fees go much higher, I can see them, not making much of a margin there and getting out of the business altogether, which would leave us with more dilapidated properties. And I don't want to see that. I can understand covering our costs, but if we're going to cover our costs on the backs of those who don't take care of their properties, I'd rather see higher fees for failure to correct than I would see the fees for the rental fees, the yearly rental fees go up. But it's well within reason. I support it. I wouldn't want to see them go up any higher than this.
Okay.
But thank you for working on this. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yes, Victor.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment, not a question. Good questions and comments from Councilman Rowe and Dalby. I'd just like to thank Jody and City Administrator Morris and all of the staff that worked on this resolution and the previous ordinance that adopts the International Property Maintenance Code. It wasn't that long ago that we were having working sessions, and every councilman up here expressed an interest in seeing improvement. And I'd like to thank you guys for taking the lead and driving this through really in an expeditious fashion. Here we are, and it's not even November, and this is the third reading. So thanks for a job well done on that.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Ready to vote? Take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. Item K, we have a request from Adam Lunt. So Adam, if you would come to the microphone and tell us what your concern is.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Just had a question. I had met with some people last night over at the Vine Coffee Shop, just at a forum to find out where people, what concerns were in town and whatnot. And I had a lady by the name of Julie Adams just ask me a question. I understand this is really more of a question for Larry Seals, but he's not here. I'm doing my due diligence tonight because I told her I'd ask. So that's what I'm up here doing. She lives at 1102 Elm Court off of Pennsylvania, and she works part-time at Drug Town. Julie's in a power wheelchair. A year ago, less than a year ago, I should say, on the south side of Pennsylvania between Jefferson and Elm, the sidewalk was replaced. The sidewalk was in need of repair. It was, I don't know how many years old, but it was pretty well cracked up and needed replaced. They did replace the sidewalk and they did a great job. However, the old sidewalk had handicap access ramps for her to get onto the sidewalk. The new one does not. So she's now stuck when she gets off work at 8 o'clock at night, It's dark out this time of year. She's driving her power wheelchair down Pennsylvania to get home. Pretty long ways because those things don't go real fast. She's tried going across the street. There is access through people's driveways on the other side to get up on the opposing sidewalk. However, she has had complaints, which I don't agree with, from some of the tenants or residents there about they don't want the liability of her using their driveways, which I can respect if she was to tip, get stuck, get hit, something along those lines. So I understand why those property owners don't want it. I guess my question is, was it an oversight? Was it a financial decision? Why was the new sidewalk replaced without the handicap curb accesses?
I'm not sure we can answer that tonight.
And I didn't figure, Mr. Mayor, you probably could. I know that's more of a question for Larry,
Sure.
but I did tell her I would bring it to your attention. And if
We
we can
appreciate that.
if we can get her an answer, it's kind of hard for her to get here because of her mobility situation.
Sure.
So I'd like to get her an answer when we can.
We'll refer it to Public Works and Engineering and get an answer back to you. And I'm sure between Mr. Morris and our staff, we'll get an answer for you and try to do that in the next 10 days.
That's great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Is there anyone else that wants to address the council?
Thank you, Mayor. Camrys, 2543 North Green Street. In 2012, I purchased property which adjoins mine. I had looked at that property for a considerable amount of time and ended up having to buy the house along with the 3¼ acres. It's been my plan to build a log home back there and retire. I'm a native Ottumwa. I've lived in that neighborhood for about 55 years. And it's always been a safe and a quiet neighborhood. And now we have some people that are deer hunting on the property adjoining mine. I have already talked with the police department. They've come out and looked. The person that was hunting illegally from a deer blind on the ground. That has been corrected. We had a discussion regarding the school district property, the rules for governing the shooting in town states that you have to be 150 feet from school district property, and that property abuts both of our properties on the north side. The 150 feet, as my understanding is, you can't be any closer than that, but you can still shoot towards school district property, which kind of negates the rule for having it the 150 feet away. I'd like to talk to Chief McAndrew, and I think it's Officer Leffler who's in charge of that program. Is that correct? And also the school district. I have already spoken with members of the school board regarding this. There are a lot of kids in the neighborhood. There are kids next door, kids on the property. The house that I bought, I have sold that. A lot of kids on Meadowdale. We have kids that are back in the woods playing all the time. I grew up, we played back in the woods. They still have soccer out at Walsh property, whether it's a school, whether it's clubs, or whether it's just kids going out to play soccer. So I would like to have this addressed and maybe bring this up at a future meeting. It's just I don't feel safe right now. The tree where the person is shooting is only about 15, 20 feet from my property. If I'm out mowing, I just don't feel safe to even be out there anymore. As a lifelong resident and person that would like to retire there, I've got a substantial investment in the house and property that I purchased. The log home I plan to build, I've already bought the plans, and that will be a substantial investment here in the city. And I'd like to feel safe to be able to do that. Otherwise, I'll just not build back there. And that's all I've got. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your concern. We'll certainly look into that. There was another gentleman that stood up. Do you want to address the council? Give us your name and address, please.
My name is Tim May, 505 North Market Street. I'd like to address the mayor and the council members. As you well know, there's been a lot of trash in the neighborhoods in the state of Ottumwa. I was wanting to know if they could appoint one person for every neighborhood and clean up the trash. And it can be every day, any day of the week. that they could appoint somebody to clean up the trash in every neighborhood in the state of Ottumwa. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody want to address that? Joni?
About cleaning trash. And, I think that's a good suggestion for the Save Ottumwa Committee. I don't know if Jody would have a response, but sounds like it'd be a great idea.
Well, I know that we do, we provide Make Ottumwa Shine trash bags for anybody who wants to clean up their neighborhood. I don't know that we would have the ability to appoint somebody, but we always have those available if there's anybody who wants to volunteer to clean up their neighborhood.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your comment.
You're welcome.
Any other business for the city council?
I have just a comment, Your Honor. Our Parks Director, Gene Ratchey, announced yesterday, I believe, on television that we had another excellent year at the Ottumwa Campground. And I think he expects it to come in around $140,000. And I would just like to say thanks to Jim and Patty, the park custodians over there, who work almost continuously. And if it wasn't for those people out in the trenches, we wouldn't have these good numbers, and they've done it consistently for more than one season. So thanks to Jim and Patty as well.
Very good. Appreciate that. Any other comments? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Thank you and good night.